the way to create a better world for everyone is to focus on your inner world, to focus on what peace looks like to you. If you want to make a difference, which you do, we all do. And sometimes wanting to change the world can lead us into places of desperation and despair because it's just too much for one person to hold. You don't have to think like that. You don't have to worry about changing the world because all you have to do is change yourself. Well, I don't have any notes or anything. I'm just going from my heart. So my name is Rhiannon, and I currently work as a hypnotherapist, which is all things consciousness. So it kind of makes sense that dreams are something that I've always paid great attention to, apart from my teenage stoner years, because I didn't remember my dreams during that time. But always been a person who wants to understand myself to the depths of my capabilities and understanding consciousness as a whole and the way that we all interact with each other. And I'm still kind of understanding exactly the part that dreams play in that. But it's something that I want to learn more about, share more about. And so I'm just really, really excited to have this conversation and to link that into my work. And dreams come up so often in the way that I work with people. I always, most of the times, regress people in our sessions. And oftentimes people will regress back to a dream that they had in their childhood, or they'll regress to a scene and they remember that they'd had a dream about that scene. And so all of these things do connect, and I'm seeing it happen in real time through my practice and kind of just making sense of it all.
Let me ask you about hypnotherapy first. How does that work? Like, what is that process like?
So if you are a meditator, you will recognize the state of hypnosis as just being in a light trance, that meditative feeling where you feel light in your body and trance-like and kind of in between wake and sleep. It's like that liminal space between falling asleep and being asleep. It's kind of exactly what that feels like. And from that space, your subconscious mind is very awake and very receptive to certain suggestions that are going to benefit your life and make certain systems feel more easeful, change beliefs, and just allow all of the different parts of self to marry up to the conscious desire for whatever it is that you're calling in at that time. It's a hack in that way. It really depends on what the person is being hypnotized for, and every person is different. So some people will leave the trance feeling like, oh my goodness, shift has happened. And it's really that instant. And you can see it from people's body language and their posture and even the shape of their face. If they've been holding on to tension in their jaw, for example, and they get to release all of that in the session, they literally leave with a different face and the beginning of their new life has started. With other people, it's the change is a bit more cumulative or it's retrospective. So they continue living. And then at the end of their month, they reflect on their month and they're like, oh, wow, well, I just managed to get up and go to the gym or get up and get onto a yoga mat. And I did that consistently. And it wasn't even something that I had to talk myself into. It was just something that felt more easy, felt more automatic. And that's what hypnosis does. That's why it's your best friend, because it just takes away like that kind of conscious chatter, that kind of like the thing pulling you in the opposite direction of discipline. And without that opposing voice, you're just like all on the same team. You're just like disciplined to do that thing that you set out to do. And think about where we would all be if we could just move forward, like full steam ahead without any kind of chatter, without opposing voices coming from external places. But it's really the internal places that matter.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I see a lot of parallels between like hypnosis work and dream work because, you know, when you're asleep, your logical mind is not chattering, like you said, and like you don't have your conscious mind, you know, giving you doubts and things like that. So you're able to reprogram your brain in a way. So I definitely think there's some correlation there. You know, we enter a different state of consciousness in both, so to speak. So how did you get interested in dream work?
I don't know who told me that dreams were important. I think it was just something that I've intuitively always known, but I paid attention to them from a young age because things that I would dream would come true. So I remember being very small and waking up in a shock and running into my parents' bedroom, like, you need to call Uncle John. You need to call Uncle John. He's in the hospital. He's not okay. And he'd had a motorbike crash that evening. There was one day I grew up in London and we would go to France for the day. It's just a drive. And we were supposed to take the ferry that day. And I was like, we can't go on that ferry. That ferry's gonna crash. The boats crash, sink, whatever boats do when they're not functioning. And so we took the train instead. And that ferry did end up sinking. The most recent time that happened was just a few weeks ago. And I'm also a yoga teacher. And I dreamt the night before that I got stung by a bee in my yoga class. And I'm in doing cat cow. And I like look down at my forearm and there's a bee there. And I'm just like, oh, this is my dream. It's coming true. I would love to be able to kind of direct those dreams a little better, or kind of like dictate when they happen. But maybe that's just like the ego mind trying to control things. And maybe you just have to allow these things to come and trust that they all happen when they're supposed to. But those are the dream coming true instances that come to the forefront. I'm just like totally in that scene with the bee stinging me. And there was a full class of like 12 people. But the adrenaline of like, oh my God, my dream just came true. And like being excited about that carried me through. I was like able to teach the entire class. And I like really sweated so much, but it was amazing.
Wow, that's super interesting. I've always found that fascinating with premonition type dreams, because sometimes it'll be a big event that's like, yeah, we can prevent this, like, like a warning. And then sometimes it's something so random, like the bee, or like a random situation. And that doesn't necessarily seem like it makes sense, or that you would have been able to predict. Have you noticed any certain different feelings of like when you have a premonition dream? Is there like a certain type of dream that's different from your other dreams that you're able to maybe recognize it, or you just don't know until it happens?
I would say the only time the feeling is different is when I'm in a lucid dream and I'm able to direct that dream. That's when that happens. And a couple of times those dreams have also ended up being premonition dreams. But then I wonder, is it a premonition dream, or are you manifesting that reality from the dream state? Like, I don't know. I mean, I wish I had the answer.
So you mean like you do something while lucid and then that comes true, whatever you created in the dream consciously?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking about when I was living in Cambodia, I was teaching at this amazing yoga retreat center for a few months. The retreat was a digital detoxing. So I always used to digitally detox too. I wouldn't be on my phones or my computer during retreat time. And I guess I was having some kind of like withdrawals or whatever, because with my precious dream time, I was like scrolling online and browsing the internet. And I was able to like realize what I was doing. And I was like, well, I'm on Skyscanner right now. Let me check and see what the flights from London to Cambodia are saying. And then there was this like ridiculously cheap flight. I think it was like £150 or something crazy from Cambodia to London. When I woke up, somehow I knew that that was real. I don't know. That's what it is. It was like I was directing the dream and aware that I was directing the dream. And that's how I knew that it was real. But it takes like that conscious input from me to be able to feel that. So then I woke up and I like ran to the nearest town to where I could get Wi-Fi. And I went on Skyscanner and I saw that that flight existed. And then I sent the link to some friends, and my dad ended up booking that flight and came to visit me. The action of doing like what sometimes you would just watch, you're just in a lucid dream and you're just like guiding and you're just watching. But when you actually begin to participate and you like have that, I guess, dream muscle memory of doing that thing, you kind of bring it into fruition.
Yeah, it's like visualizing with like your full senses. I've like played around with manifesting in my lucid dreams. I've never had that quick of results. So like, that's really good. Definitely something you can like hone in on. What I find interesting about your dream too, the whole question of like, did I manifest this, or was I seeing something that was already there? You know what I mean? Because some people might argue that you were like astral projecting and you saw the flight on the internet somehow. But the fact that it was so cheap was also like, would that have even existed if you didn't have such confidence to manifest it? So yeah, I have so many questions. I don't know.
We could all just be like, okay, we could all go home now if we like knew all of the answers to these things. So yeah, a part of me is glad that I don't. That is true. So that dream to you sounds more like an astral projection.
Well, I don't know. I was just thinking about it. I definitely think it's possible to manifest things from your dreams. And I think that you have that ability for sure. But I do think dreams are powerful. And I think both things could be true. Like the dream could show you something that you didn't know about, and you can bring something to life from the dream into waking life, which I've done in other ways, like art projects and stuff. I've created things in my dream. And sometimes it feels like the idea is not even mine. Like it just came from somewhere out in the dreamscape. And then I'm like, wow, I'm lucid. And I'm like, this is so cool. I want to create this, And then I wake up and I'm like, well, it was my dream. So I guess I can make it. It's like my art. So then I'll create it in waking life.
But you don't always know the difference between a lucid dream and an astral projection. And I do feel like I mix up those terms a lot. How would you decipher them for you?
That's a good question. Okay, so this is how I define it. So I think of this umbrella term being out of body experiences, right? And there's a lot of different types of out of body experiences. Even hypnosis kind of applies under there, because you're kind of separating a little bit from your physical body. And there's levels to how you can do that. When you're dreaming, especially when you're lucid, you can travel places, you can see other dimensions, you can leave your physical body. And same thing when you're astral projecting. That's the concept of like viewing the physical plane from an astral vantage point outside of your physical body. So essentially being able to see other locations. But the thing is, you don't have to be asleep to do that. So, it's not the same thing as lucid dreaming because you can do it through meditation or hypnosis. If you're in a trance, you can be outside of your physical body and view from an astral vantage point or point of view. So I believe that like they all fall under the category of out of body experiences. So maybe they're like cousins. That's how I see it.
I'm not sure how to put what I was feeling as you were explaining into words just yet, but I could feel like a seeping of truth coming in and a deepening of understanding.
I love that. Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time because it's a big debate online. People will say like, oh, it's the same, it's different, it's this and that. And while I do believe that a lot of dreams are just purely mental and on the subconscious plane, there are also dreams where we do enter higher levels of consciousness and enter the astral plane. But that doesn't mean that every dream is astral travel.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm lucid dreaming or I'm astral projecting, but I guess I'm astral projecting because a lot of the times this happens to me when I'm in meditation or having some body work done. Whenever I have acupuncture, I have experiences like this. And with certain masseurs, I have experiences like this. But again, it's like I'm not always with my body. Sometimes I'm flying with my body. Sometimes I'm just like a dot, like an electron moving through time and space. And I'm just like really coming to the conclusion of how important this realm is in terms of how I show up every day and what I do and how I work with my clients. And occupying these trance spaces really is 50% of the good that I do in the world. And I wasn't fully honoring that. I wasn't honoring it because it looks like you're not working if you're just lying in Shavasana, like not on my computer. I'm not working. But actually, that's where most of my best work gets done. And to rob myself of that time, I see it impacted in my work in real time. And so it has really been very recently, like I'm going to say in the last couple of weeks, that I've honored myself in that way. And I've honored this time as sacred and seeing it as part of my purpose and the bigger picture of what I do, and playing with the idea of like being paid to exist. Existing for me means spending time in trances, and with the downloads that I spend in those trances, I give that back to my clients, and it's a mutually beneficial thing for everybody.
Our soul is doing work outside of the physical plane, even if we don't realize it. And like being a human on earth is just a small part of that. So like, it's good that you're able to bring in such information and like share it with the world. I love that.
I would love to learn more about the dream work that you do.
Yeah, it's really fun. I started off just by loving my dreams. I've always thought dreams were cool. I've had lucid dreams really young. And I always was just like kind of an open thinker, interested in consciousness. I started to just kind of build a community when I started a podcast, and I started to study psychology and that kind of stuff. So I started talking to people about dreams and teaching as I was learning, kind of like you. I was like learning things. But at first I felt crazy. I was like, how do I even know this? Like I would just know things and I wouldn't even Google them. And then as I would start researching and going to college and all that kind of stuff, I got my master's degree and everything. I was like, I already knew these things. How did I even know that? Like, it just started to confirm that like, okay, I can trust these downloads that I'm getting. And I was already a lucid dreamer. So I would just start talking about my lucid dreaming experiences, dream control, dream stabilization, how to make your dreams better, what to do in your lucid dream, all that kind of stuff, how to like take your manifestations and apply them into your waking life. So I started talking about that. And I realized that a lot of people need help lucid dreaming. Like not everybody is a natural lucid dreamer as a kid, you know? So I had that benefit of having such experience that I just started teaching people what I naturally already knew. And it felt really good because people would be like, wow, I started having lucid dreams. Like I started doing this that you told me, whatever, and it worked. And then they spread the word. So I'm kind of just helping spread the word about lucid dreaming. But it's not just lucid dreaming. I also talk about dream analysis and like, like premonition dreams and how to approach your nightmares and that kind of stuff. So it all kind of falls into the dream work category. But lucid dreaming is definitely like the thing I love teaching the most.
So when you're analyzing dreams, do you kind of go off things that you have read previously about what certain things symbolize, or you just allow yourself to channel that information?
I take like dream dictionaries with like a grain of salt because they can help. And I always tell people this too, like the dreamer really knows in your subconscious what something means. Because like, let's say you dream of like a snake, one person's experience with snakes is going to be one thing completely different than somebody else, depending on how your subconscious thinks about the object or the symbol and what your experience is. It's going to be a different message. So it's like, how does your subconscious communicate with you? So dream analysis is a very personal thing. So I analyze my own dreams by like recording them and noticing patterns and recording the symbols and things like that. And I'll look up my dream symbols sometimes, just cross-reference different resources and stuff. But that's just to open up like an associative thinking for me to be able to come up with my own interpretation, because I'm not going to say like, oh, this is exactly what this symbol means, because you can't apply it to everybody, but you can help people just get free associative thinking so that they can like think less literally about a dream and maybe more metaphorically about what the symbol could be representing. So that's kind of how I approach it.
For those of us who have more of a logical kind of analytical mind, but they're starting to dream and they're starting to pay more attention to their dreams, and they're starting to realize that maybe there is wisdom or medicine here, or an expansion in any way that person perceives, but they're still like very in their logical mind in terms of what their belief system is allowing them to believe or not. What kind of like language do you speak to these people in?
Yeah, I love this question because I was literally having this conversation with somebody the other day. He was like very logical and like literal, try to think outside the box, So like one exercise I do is like take a main dream symbol. Like, I tell people you try to really think about all the things you can think of when you think of this symbol, like, and even talk about it with someone and describe it to somebody as if you're describing it to like an alien who has no idea what this is and has never been to Earth. And you have to really describe it in the most simple way possible. You know what I mean? And once I started doing that with him with different symbols in his dreams, like he was like, wow, I didn't even think of this and that. And like all these different like associations started to come up. So I would say it definitely takes some like creative thinking about a dream symbol and maybe talking about it with someone and bouncing ideas off of it to think more than just what it seems, because a pizza, maybe it could mean something about your health, but maybe it's like about something that's communal or multiple parts of a whole, or, something warm contained in a box. Like there's so many ways to describe it. You can get down to the material or the shape or the colors. Like there's so many different aspects of a dream symbol that it might not just mean like, oh, this dream is about pizza. Like, the dream might be about something completely different. So yeah, it's really about just like breaking it down and like thinking outside the box.
That has always been a question that I've asked myself, because I think at my heart and my soul, I've always been like a free creative thinker. And I think the society and my study kind of put me into more of an analytical, logical, scientific way. My background is in engineering. People laugh when I tell them that. But then I ended up becoming a yoga teacher, and now I'm a hypnotherapist. So all of these parts kind of found their way back to each other. It's a tricky one for me, because you always want to meet a person exactly where it is that they are. And you always want to ease a person in if they're curious, but still in that phase where they're like dipping a toe, and you don't want to sound like a crazy lady who could scare them and put them off on their first like inquiries. But at the same time, like you want to honor your wholeness, and you want to honor the things that you do know, and you want to be able to like package all of that stuff up in a way that makes a person even more curious and doesn't scare them away. And I think that hypnotherapy kind of gave me a good language to be able to talk to people in terms of, before that, maybe I sounded like a woo-woo yoga teacher. And now I'm kind of like somewhere in between the two.
Yeah, I relate to that so much because dreams, there's some science now. And I kind of, like you said, meet people where they're at. Some people are so skeptical, even about dreams. So probably even more about hypnotherapy. But even that, there's some science now. And so, I kind of meet people like, hey, here's some research. You can read about it. Or here's some, evidence that was found on lucid dreaming or whatever. So they know that I'm not just saying stuff, like people are actually interested in this now. Or some people are more spiritual. So, as a teacher, you kind of have to gauge people where they're at. And like, then I approach it from a different, more spiritual approach. Or some people are in between. People might come from different walks of life, so they might have different viewpoints. But there's kind of something for everybody there because everybody dreams, whether you are spiritual or not. Or and whether you're spiritual or not, you still have a soul that can go places, whether you accept it or not. So, it can apply to everybody. You just have to figure out how their mind works.
Oh, I love the understanding that you have on that because, for me, science and spirituality are just different languages to explain so much of what we do know and also so much of which we don't. And then there are those moments where the science and the spirituality completely just smash into each other and there is no disputing that. And those are the moments that send chills down my spine and just make me feel so excited. And these moments that I live for, being a bridge between the science and the spiritual. And within that, knowing that whether it's acknowledged or not, like you have a soul and your soul is traveling, your soul is going places, whether or not you pay attention to that or not. I think anybody listening will be able to feel into the great benefits that can come from just paying attention, because otherwise what you have is a blind spot, like a completely unexplored black hole of your own consciousness and your own psyche. And for me personally, that makes me feel very uncomfortable. That makes me feel a lot more uncomfortable than exploring and learning and deepening and experiencing.
That's true. A lot of people are scared of what they don't know. And like the physical world is everything we can see, but there's so much more, like you said, we spend a third of our lives asleep, which is a big chunk, and we're dreaming and we're asleep. And I've always thought like, I don't want to miss out on those memories. I want to pay attention to them. I want to use them to my benefit. Like there's some juicy stuff there. It's like a life hack, So yeah, it's important to pay attention to our dreams and our subconscious.
Pretty much every single phobia that any person can ever have can kind of be tracked back to the root cause of fear of death, which is like the ultimate unknown. And so for me, in these explorations and starting to understand myself as a spiritual being and realizing that this soul of mine is eternal, kind of the fear that can be associated around death kind of just dissolves. It just disappears. And then with that fear of death disappeared, if all of a sudden you're not afraid of the unknown in the ultimate way of death anymore, then all of these kind of little fears seem to dissolve and disappear. And you find yourself with more space to be able to explore and learn about these other things that were once unknown to you, that then end up becoming familiarity. So that's also a wonderful journey to be on personally and to observe other people on.
Some people are terrified of the idea of existing past death, and some people, it relieves them, I've noticed. And I've noticed that, a lot of my dreams, too, have helped eliminate my fear of death because I know, I've seen myself die. I've thought I've been dead already, so I kind of already felt it. And dream prepares you for death. Sleep essentially prepares you for death because the same way we wake up in the morning, our consciousness is practicing essentially to die and reincarnate again into whatever other journey. So that's like a big purpose that dreams serve for us. They prepare us for scary situations or life-threatening situations, and also for that transition of consciousness. So we don't even realize it, but our brain's kind of preparing us.
It's so true. And just making that connection back to yoga, what is the final resting position called? It's Shavasana, which is corpse pose, which is giving yourself that space to connect to your true essence, to connect to source, to connect to the nothingness that we really are, which is really the same thing as being dead. Through my work and my experiences and what I've noticed and seen is that if people are experiencing any form of suicidal ideation, then oftentimes that is a big part part of the picture that becomes overlooked. It's like we all have a longing for our soul to return to what is, to return to where we came from. And it's that like sense of nothingness that you can feel in Shavasana or in meditation or in trance that just connects you to your source and connects you to your essence. And maybe in a lot of cases, that is what the ideation comes from, is that desire to be connected to where you came from.
The physical existence is a very difficult place to be. My belief, at least, is that like, you know, your consciousness kind of remains in a way and we'll kind of transition. But like sometimes it's better to work things out here, because if not, you're going to have to work them out when you die. Like,
agreed. I agree. Like things repeat, patterns repeat. It happens. That's not to say that I don't believe that there is a way to not allow a pattern to repeat. I do believe that we can deal with things on the soul level without also needing a human body to be able to do so. But that's a whole other conversation. Again, it's just my opinion. I have no idea if it's right or not. It's just what I feel to be true in this moment. But in terms of past life progression, regression, and seeing things repeat with my client work, I oftentimes have people wanting to regress to past lives, and I don't do that. I don't do past life regression. I believe that it's an amazing way for people to spiritually bypass, because I think if things are repeating, then they can just go to those regions and times in their life, in this current manifestation of life, to be able to see those issues and not necessarily have to go into past lives in order to be able to do so. Sometimes it happens naturally. And when it happens, it makes sense that it's happening, because that is really where the work needs to be done. So it's not something that I will lead people to intentionally. And if it does happen, then I just accept, okay, this is where the work needs to be done. And it happens probably less than 5% of the time. So you are the dream queen. And sometimes, like, I don't know, for me anyway, when you've had a big night of explorations and you wake up and all of a sudden it's like you realize in order to function as a human being, like practices and grounding and like some kind of technique to tether you back, for me anyway, is like very important. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, I definitely have it into my practice. Like I do a lot of meditation at night as I'm falling asleep, you know, just the two transitional periods are very important. So like falling asleep and waking up. So when I'm falling asleep, I kind of just prepare myself, meditate, get myself in a good thought process, good mindset. I'll like go over a dream plan if I have one, you know, kind of set the stage for my intentions for the dreams. And then when I'm waking up, you know, I let myself wake up slowly. Like that's a very important time for me because I want to remember my dreams. So I take time to wake up. I don't just jump out of bed and use an alarm and go about my day. So I make sure I write down my dreams. Like that's the first thing I do pretty much every day, is like make sure I can see if I remember any dreams. And if not, I let them come back to me. And then just in general, throughout my day, I do a lot of mindfulness practice. And this is it's become something even beyond dream work that's just helped me throughout my life. And sometimes when I have a really stressful dream, I do have to take time, like you said, to ground myself and process it and create some space so that it doesn't affect my psyche too much. Yeah,
very similar stuff. I spend a lot of time in meditation. I visualize roots coming down from my feet, connecting me to the center of the earth. Spend a lot of time in nature, at the beach or hikes through the jungle. Food as well. If I feel like I need rooting, I'll eat a lot of root vegetables, grounding foods, and just like setting the intention to be here in this body, connected to this earth, connected to everything around me that is here to interact, and knowing that there is a time and a space for trance and time and a space for dream work. And it is just a tiny, very important part of this human existence, and allowing that trance work and dream work to make so much space in your everyday reality. I don't know if it's the same with you, but when I neglect on that part of things, time feels very different to me in my waking hours. It feels as though there just isn't enough time in a day. Whereas when I do take the space to dream and be in trance and everything, it's like there is all of this spaciousness and all of this time that opens up to me, and I'm able to fit more in, and I'm able to navigate between things more easily, and things just kind of feel like they're in a flow that's being guided by something bigger than myself. As somebody who is really wanting to make dreams a part of like a practice of tangibility that I can use to manifest and get to my goals quicker and to be of higher service on this planet and to reach more people and to help more people, what advice would you offer me?
Well, do you write your dreams down at all?
Inconsistently.
Okay. So definitely start a dream journal, keep it going, like write all your dreams down or, as many as you can. Like I know that it can be hard, but, first thing in the morning, record your dreams. And because that'll help you with lucid dreaming. Like how often do you have lucid dreams?
I would say I have lucid dreams probably a couple of times a week, but less when it's being controlled by me.
Okay, perfect. So lucidity is a spectrum, right? So you could be semi-lucid where you're kind of aware, or you can be lucid, but you can't control the dream. And then you can be fully lucid with full control, right? So it's definitely like a spectrum, but that's really good. So you're in a perfect position to be able to use your dreams for like everything you're doing in life. So I'm excited for you. So definitely start writing your dreams down, and just kind of incorporate whatever, your dream practice into whatever you're already doing. And when you do get lucid, just by writing your dreams down and thinking about them, your lucidity is going to get stronger. Have like a plan, for example. Like think of a plan of what you want to do. Like let's say you had a lucid dream tonight with full control. Like what is it that you want to work on? Say you're thinking of something for your business or how you can help people or whatever it is task that you think you need at the moment. There's so many ways to work with your dreams. Like when I'm lucid, I go around talking to dream characters, which, they could be entities that want to help you. They could be your subconscious. They could be both. So either way, it could help you. So I ask them questions. I'm like, hey, what should I do about this? How can I help this person? Like sometimes I'll just interview them like a podcast and it'll give me ideas for like things to talk about, so I'll literally question my dream characters all the time. Like that's one of my favorite things because it's a source for like conversation and inspiration. And then if you're already in the practice of writing down your dreams, that's the core foundation because you'll remember whatever conversation you had in your dream with the dream characters. And then you'll be able to remember it better and write it down in your habit. You won't just lose it and forget the dream. So that's why the dream recall is very important. The dream journal makes you remember more and it just kind of has you always thinking about it. The more you're thinking about dreams, the more you can use them consciously. But other ways to do that are like, like we were saying earlier, manifest, like practice building whatever you want to build, practice like designing, whatever it is that you want to bring into life. You work with it in your dreams. So if you're lucid and you can control your dream, you could summon something that you want to work with, see how it works, study it, and then wake up and record it, So there's a lot of ways to do that. And you just have to remember your dreams and become lucid. And even when you're not lucid, you can still get answers. Like your dream task can still come through in like a regular dream too.
I'm so excited as if I needed another reason to love sleeping.
I know, right? It's kind of like how I felt when you were saying that about yoga. It's like, I feel like I'm just sleeping and people are looking at me like I'm just lazy and unproductive, but I'm putting in work over here in the dream world. Like I even have dreams now that I'm like, and I think part of it is like my soul does this all the time anyways, but sometimes I'll notice it where I'm in a dream and I'm not even lucid. Like I think I'm just teaching people about lucid dreaming and I'm telling them about lucid dreaming and I'm like podcasting about it and stuff. So like I'm even doing it in the astral, but sometimes it'll be like, I know I'm in a dream and I'll be telling other people like, hey, you're in a dream, like wake up, like become lucid, like look what I can do, like you're not in reality. And sometimes they'll look at me like, what are you talking about? And sometimes they'll be like, oh wow, I'm lucid. Like even though it's my dream, I still wake up feeling like I was like meeting other dreamers and helping them wake up from inside the dream.
That's really cool. So have you had that experience where you've interacted with a person in your dream and then you go on to meet that person in real life?
It's going to happen because like it's happened to me so many times where I'll be in a dream. Sometimes one time a dream character came up to me and she was like, oh my God, I'm glad I found you. We have so much work to do. I'm a lucid dreamer too. I can't remember. She was from London or something. She was like, we're going to do work together. Da, 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 da. She was like, when's your period? Like we're going to be synced in. And she was like, you have to find me on social media. She like gave me her social media handle. But obviously like when I woke up, every time that happens, like I wake up and like I can't remember the name or like I can't find the profile or something. And that's happened to me a bunch of times where I'm talking to a dream character. She's like, yeah, I'm lucid too. Like I'm dreaming right now. And I'm like, no way, me too. And she's like, yeah, like follow me. And that's happened to me a bunch of times. I've even told people like, hey, if in case I can't find you, go Google the Dream World podcast and say that you found me in a dream and I'll remember you. So I'm still waiting for them to be like, hey, I remember you from my dream. It'll happen. It'll happen one of these days.
Let me know when it does.
maybe I won't even consciously realize it. Like maybe some of these people, I've met them before and I'm already working with them, but like my conscious self doesn't recognize them, but my dream self have already been working with them for years. You know what I mean? Like that's also something that I believe in, that we're not always aware of the work that our subconscious is doing in the dream world. So maybe I already have, who knows?
Oh, I love this conversation. It's so expanding. It's so amazing. And I'm just like fighting the urge to want to like go off and stare into space and just like dork out with myself because I'm like currently recording a pod, but it's so cool. I feel as though I have. There's this woman who, her face is so familiar to me. And there's a meditation that I do. I am in my body and I hover up to, well, I'm out of body, but I'm in this body. And I hover up and I'm at the edge of the earth and I'm looking down at earth. And then I look around and there's other healers, other women, other guardians and protectors of the earth with me. And we hold hands and we say a prayer and we send good vibes and love to earth. And a woman who I know from that space, I was at a waterfall in like my happy place. And it was amazing. We had the waterfall to ourselves all day long and we had a sacred mushroom ceremony and we were just with the water. And the only other person who we saw that entire day was this woman who I recognized from that dream or that scene or that meditation, whatever it is I want to call it. And it was her. There was no disputing the fact that I'd seen this woman before. And she recognized me too. We didn't speak, but we looked at each other and we just acknowledged each other. And there was so much love in that moment. And she had her moment with the waterfall and she left and I didn't ever see her again. That's what this conversation led me to remember. I wonder who she is.
Yeah, I definitely believe that for sure. I've heard so many stories like that there's like no way that like all these people are just making this up. Like we're all like experiencing these things and like seeing things come to fruition from our dreams. So like it's obvious that it's not just a dream like people brush it off as.
And I think that animals communicate with us a lot through our dreams too. I'm thinking of this shared dream that I had when I was living in Costa Rica. I was living at the retreat center that I was also volunteering and teaching at. And there was this little chihuahua who was beloved. Like everybody loved this little chihuahua. And then all of a sudden he went missing. Like the dog was nowhere to be found and everyone's heartbroken. We're like, where is he? Where did this little chihuahua go? And then in the next few nights, we all had recurring and the same dream of this dog being trapped somewhere. And he was scared and he was dark and describing the surroundings. Like there was no disputing that 4 of us were having the exact same dream. And I feel like it was him trying to communicate with us. And then we ended up finding him. He was in the next town along. Somebody from the center had gone on an errand to the next town to do something. And they just found him and brought him straight home. But it was wild that we all had the same recurring dream about where he was. And he was definitely communicating with us.
Speaking of animals, I don't know if you can hear my dog barking in the background. So I think that since they can't like communicate the way we can, they have like extra sensory types of perception, you know, they see in other dimensions and like they even enter our dreams sometimes. So I think they do that more naturally than we do. Do you have anything that you want to share with people? Like where can they find you and like what you have going on?
So if anybody is interested in hypnotherapy, if anybody is living their life and their life is naturally showing them where some deeper inquiry and clarity and resolution is needed, and you've resonated with me from listening to this podcast, it would be really amazing to hear from you. So you can head to my website and it is www.rhiannonokoye.com and you can set up a free 15-minute consultation and we can chat further, see if there's a resonance, see how I can be of best service, and maybe we end up working together. I feel as though the way to create a better world for everyone, for you, for me, for all of us, for the generations to come, is to focus on your inner world, to focus on what peace looks like to you, to focus on those obstructions that keep us from peace. Because once we experience peace in our hearts on the micro scale, all of that ripples out and all of a sudden the world at large looks like a more peaceful place, a place that we wouldn't hesitate into wanting to bring future generations into the world. If you want to make a difference, which you do, we all do, humans are good by nature and we are purpose-led and we all want to do good in the world. And sometimes wanting to change the world can lead us into places of desperation and despair because it's just too much for one person to hold. You don't have to think like that. You don't have to worry about changing the world, because all you have to do is change yourself, and you have the power to be able to do that. You have so much power to be able to do that, and let that empower you, let that inspire, allow the ripples of your own personal healing to ripple out and bring about more change than you could ever imagine. So that's what's on my heart.
I love that. Thank you so much for just joining me and bringing your beautiful energy. It's been so fun talking to you.
Absolutely. Sounds good. So much love to you.
You too. Bye-bye.